Hello? Hello? Good afternoon. Can anybody hear me?
Yes, we can. I can hear you. Good afternoon, sir.
Hello?
Hi, I can hear you.
Hello, good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon. We can hear you.
Good afternoon. Yes, we're a little bit late. Are we good to go? Hello, Dr. Boyo. Are you there, sir? I think you should unmute your mic. Dr. Boyo, I think you should unmute your mic. Hello? Larry, I can see you. Good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon. Good to see you. Looking
Good to
well.
see you. Yeah, thank you very much. Mr. Ibrahim, good afternoon. Afternoon, sir. Mr. Ibrahim, good afternoon. Hello? Is Dr. Boyo there? Wow. Hello? Hello, Linda?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you loud and clear. Yeah, good to have you, sir.
I tried to reach you yesterday, but your phone was engaged. I guess you were busy counting money. Good to have you here. Is
Yeah,
Dr. Boyo
thank
now?
you. Same here.
Dr. Boyo, good afternoon. I don't think he's joined us yet. Let me see if I can.
From my end, I will argue that he hasn't joined us yet. So.
Yeah, it looks like he hasn't joined. He's critical because my comments are very brief.
Yeah.
Maybe somebody should give him a call.
Yeah, maybe that's one of my guys to do that.
Okay.
Elvis, where's Elvis? Can you let me talk to him, please. Can you do Dr. Boy a quick call, please? It looks like he hasn't joined us yet, and he's critical. Just do that quickly, please. So good to see you guys. While we wait for him, I would just like to make some general comments to welcome you all to this webinar. I think we should wait for him. I don't want to repeat myself. I think we just wait for him to join us so that we don't have to do this over again. I'm sure he'll join us in a few minutes. Let me also try and call him myself.
Okay, so he sent a message that he has joined us. So
He has?
Yeah, on the chat.
On the chat, okay.
Yeah.
Dr. Boy, have you joined us?
Oh,
I hear you all. We can hear us. Okay, but we can't see you. We'd like to see your handsome face. That would help. Anyway, I think we can go straight now that we have Dr. Boy joined us. We can go straight ahead to conversation. I welcome you all once again. My name is John Ehigwese. I'm CEO of Mediacraft Associates. Mediacraft is currently prosecuting a campaign, a protein deficiency awareness campaign that is sponsored by USEC and other partners. USEC is United States Soybeans Export Council, a partnership with some other parties that are sponsoring this campaign. The whole idea of the campaign, which is tagged Protein Challenge, is to draw attention to the challenge of protein deficiency in the country. And also as a corollary of that, to position soybeans as the most cost-effective solution to that challenge. So the campaign kicked off a short while ago, but before we started, we actually conducted a nationwide survey that was undertaken by Mr. Fashakin's company. He will join him in a short while. And that survey was nationwide, like I said, and some of the report of that survey is already in the public domain, and it will form part of discussions this afternoon. So today we're talking about Nigeria's food culture and the challenge of protein deficiency. One of the things that came out of the research was the fact that in terms of our cultural approach to food choice, we tend to be heavy on the side of carbohydrates. And I think that that's somewhat accounts for some of the challenge that we have with protein deficiency. And that's why we thought that any discussion on protein deficiency must actually also consider it within the cultural context. And that's how we came up with this theme for this discussion. But let me not preempt Dr. Boyo. We have a very formidable key speaker this afternoon, Dr. Madeleine Boyo, who is a practicing physician, a public health practitioner, and medical director of Pinecrest Specialist Hospital, Mafoluku, Oshodi. Dr. Boyo, welcome to this webinar. He'll be our lead speaker this afternoon. Also on the panel, we have a formidable panel. We have Mr. Ezekiel Ibrahim, who is the president of Poultry Association of Nigeria. I'm sure poultry plays a central role in any discussion about protein deficiency. We have Linda Waudu, who is a nutritionist and Mastercard Foundation Scholar at the University of Edinburgh. Linda is a nutritionist, like I said earlier. We also double as the moderator for this session. Last but not the least, we have Mr. Larry Fashakin, MD of CMRG, Communication and Marketing Research Group Limited. His company conducted this survey, and so it would be a good idea to hear from him some of the insights that came out of the survey as a very important part of this discussion. So I welcome you all. I'm not going to spend too much time on my introductory remarks. I think I'll just go straight to the keynote speaker, so I can give the presentation and then we can have discussion. Dr. Boya, welcome, sir. I still can't see him here.
Yeah, I think he's having some issues with his microphone, like from the chats. So.
From the chat. Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Okay. Can hear you or can't be heard. Have you unmuted your phone, sir? Says he can hear us, but we can't hear him.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the chat now.
Or maybe we go up the videos. Sometimes the videos would make the sound a bit clearer.
Yeah, that's true.
Let's unmute the videos. Maybe that will help his connection a little bit.
Okay. Stop video. So I've taken my hands off.
Has it been signed in? I'm sure he received a unique access code.
Okay. just can't chat with him. So.
Hello?
So I think he's not logged in as a panelist. So
I private.
so even
I'm
if
asking him to click on the unique ID sent to him. There was a unique password shared with him yesterday.
Yeah, I'm not sure he's going to. I'm not sure he's going to see that message because he's not on the panelist session.
Do you want to invite him as a panelist now?
So it might be worth it to reach out to him off this chat, maybe on a chat or something, to tell him to follow that link. Because he's not here in the panelist team. So if you send anything here, he's not going to see it.
I'm sure they shared something with him as a guest speaker as well.
They did.
Sure. He's just going to click on that and that will take him to this. Okay. I'm not in as a panelist. I'm seeing everybody and hearing everybody. So he just reverted that he can see and hear what we're saying. But somehow we can't.
We need to hear him. That's important.
Okay, let me tell him.
Let me ask them to send him a link as a panelist.
Okay, apologies to everyone here. Please, we'll try and get this fixed shortly.
Okay, that's all right. Thank you. Maybe we can, someone else is complaining of volume. Maybe you can ask him to increase the speakers, the loudspeaker volume of his speakers.
Is he even on? I think that's the first point. We need to be sure he's even on to start with. Having an issue with that's somebody else having an issue with the volume.
Yeah, somebody with the nation.
Yeah, I've seen that. We need to get Dr. Madeli first on before we can even talk of volume. I think he's having a problem inside, but I'm sure he'll soon sort it out. That's the problem with technology. We're all trying to grow into it.
Yeah.
That's right.
You know, I mean, I had a very funny experience. I had a webinar on Friday last week. It was actually hacked, you know.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was hacked, and that was our first experience on a Zoom webinar, and it wasn't funny at all. I guess these are early days yet. We're just getting into it, so we'll perfect it as we go along. But that's the new normal anyway, so we'll have to grow into it to go along.
Okay, he's saying, but we can't hear him. He just sent a message.
Okay, so I'm going to see. Just hold on.
Dr. Majel, any progress? Can we do something on the chat? Can we chat and see what progress you're making? Mr. Brian, my apologies. Oh, I'm sure we'll still get this thing off the ground. Hello, Mr. Ibrahim.
Okay, so he joined us now. So
He has joined us. Okay, I can't see him.
He has, because I was trying to like move him.
Okay.
So, well, he's there right now. So.
Dr. Boyo, good afternoon and welcome. I still can't see you, but I'm doing it by faith.
So he's on mute.
I'm speaking to you by faith. I hope that you can hear me.
Yes, I'm hearing you as usual. It's just now that the icon of mute and video just came on now. So I guess I've just been allowed in as a panelist. Yes.
Yeah, you're welcome, sir. Sorry about the glitch. I was just telling the others that, well,
thank you very much.
Some of us are not exactly very familiar with this technology thing. We'll have to grow into it.
Well, I am familiar. I've held several Zoom trainings. I'm very familiar with it. I just don't know what happened.
You're most welcome, sir. These things happen.
Okay.
You're most welcome, sir. Yeah, I just gave a few introductory remarks earlier on, and I think at this point, I'll just let you go straight. Everybody has a background what this is about, so I'll just let you go straight to your presentation. We're already far gone in terms of timing. So you're most welcome, sir. Please go ahead. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. All right. I have my I have my slides over there, and are you hearing me? Is everybody hearing me?
Yes,
Very
I
well.
am.
Yes, we can.
Clearly. Yeah, we can.
Yes, I'm not the one directly in charge of my slide. So my slide is in your company, in your office. I sent it in and they didn't return it to me. So I need the slide from there. I'm waiting for the slide to be shared because it wasn't returned back to me.
Can you please share the slide now? What's going on? We'll put it on in a minute.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
Thank
For
you,
just general introduction,
yeah.
I'm grateful for the privilege of sharing with you. My name is Dr. Boyo. I have been practicing for more than 38 years now in medicine, and my area of interest is public health and family medicine. I run a hospital in the same location for 26 years in Lagos here. And I'm privileged to be here today on the challenges of protein nutrition. I'm also noticing that I have some specialists in nutrition here. Maybe they're going to do their best and put in because no man is an island. So Nigeria's food culture and the challenge of protein deficiency. Next slide, please. Next slide, please.
Next slide, please.
All right. So culture is defined by contemporary dictionary as the culture of a people as its total sum of the ways of living built up by a group of human beings and transmitted from one generation to another. It is those customary beliefs, social forms, and material traits of a race, a religious group, or a social group. The great anthropologist E.B. Taylor describes culture as that complex whole, which includes knowledge, belief, art, morals, law, custom, and any other capabilities and habits acquired by man as a member of society. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. I'm waiting for the next slide,
please.
All right. All right. So studies have shown that humans acquire culture through the learning process of enculturation and socialization. Raymond identified 29 ways are growth, development, evolution, involution, renovation, and reconception, reform, and the like. The past 100 years have been described by many as a season of humanity in a global accelerating culture change period, driven by the expansion of international commerce, the mass media, and above all, the human population explosion. So this is what we're experiencing in the last 100 years. There have been tremendous invasion of our privacy, of our cultures, of our various groups, people groups all over the world by international commerce, the mass media, internet, and migration. The world is now often described as a global village. Developing countries like us are increasingly exposed to knowledge, global commerce, and interactions that have been inducing changes and cultural modifications. Very strict and authoritarian societies, such as in the Middle East and communist countries, are experiencing cultural tsunamis. What I mean by this is that even places that have been virtually locked up, like China, you know, and Saudi Arabia. Recently, Saudi Arabia started thinking of giving a go-ahead, and they did start of allowing women to drive. If such cultures, such enclosed places, such enclaves can begin to have cultural changes, then there's no way in the world that cannot have this due to international global commerce, news media, and migration. Things have really exploded in the last 100 years in the area of cultural change. Nigeria has over 250 ethnic groups. Some people say 400, but the commonly agreed one is 250 ethnic groups and 600 languages. So we can see here that even among ethnic groups, you'll have subsets and distinct smaller languages. The ethnic groups have foods that are unique and indigenous to them. For instance, in the Southwest and in Eastern region, where Yorubas and Igbos are dominant groups, staple foods such as yam, cassava byproduct like gari, fufu, and lafu, with vegetables prepared as soup, often overcooked as the vegetables, thereby losing essential micronutrients. So we have here, what we are trying to say here is that basically in Nigeria, whether in North or in the South, the basic staple is carbohydrates. And we have what is known as a two-plate diet in Nigeria, and most parts of Africa, where you have a bowl containing the gari, the lafun, the amala, or the rice. Then we have another bowl containing the soup. So that's what we have in Africa. So we Africans, the culture of Africa is a culture of two-plate diet. And so most homes in Africa have the carbohydrate, otherwise known as a swallow, and the liquid to swallow it, that's a soup. Next slide, please. Hello? All right, carbohydrates such as rice and gari form the most commonly consumed food in Nigeria. Beans has been identified by many authors as the most commonly consumed protein-rich food outside of animal proteins, such as chicken, turkey, and beef. However, these animal proteins can be classified as rare luxury items in the meals of most homes. When they exist, they're always in cubes. The cost of animal protein has made this class of food prohibitive. The lower middle class and the low socioeconomic classes eat more of plant proteins, such as beans, for their source. So we now have the story of malnutrition. The WHO refers to malnutrition as deficiencies, excesses, or imbalances, those three things. So malnutrition could either be obesity, undernutrition, you know. So we talk about the term malnutrition addressing three broad groups of conditions. Undernutrition, which includes wasting, low weight for height, stunting, low height for age, and underweight, low weight for age. Micronutrient-related malnutrition, which includes micronutrient deficiencies, that is a lack of important vitamins and minerals, or micronutrient excess, and overweight, obesity, and diet-related non-communicable diseases have become issues. So we are now looking at what is happening in the country today. We have a situation where there's extreme malnutrition in different parts of the country. We may be looking at the urban areas and looking at the rich people on video in Nigeria, the home video, and we think people are well fed. But the truth of the matter is that we have iron deficiency and anemia in Nigeria, protein energy malnutrition, vitamin A deficiency, and iron deficiency disorder. And so if we're going to get out of this, we have to start thinking of understanding the malnutrition in this country and intervening at the level of dietary diversification. Next slide, please. Nigeria's food is part of culture and is a reflection of the way of life of the people. Culture change can be very difficult and can only happen over time using various tools. If you remember, I did mention culture change earlier on, where I said there are many ways to influence culture change, and studies will start with, in Nigeria here, we've done a lot of KAP studies, knowledge, attitude, and practice of the various ethnic groups. But there are so many literatures, scattered literatures everywhere. It makes you think that Nigeria has so many countries in it, but indeed there's something running through it all. Carbohydrate and the two-plate diet, the carbohydrate and the solid and the liquid. So we need to do more of analyzing reports of impact of culture on health. There's a lot of literature, but harmonizing them and being able to understand the varieties of food, the way it is prepared, the way it is stored, the way it is eaten, and when it is eaten. We need to have that conversation. And then after doing this analysis of knowledge, attitude, and practices of various ethnic groups, we need to educate the people on the present danger of malnutrition. People will not just change because food is life. Food is life. I come from a place, for instance, where the well-loved food is starch and banga. I remember my children getting to the US and they met me and said, "Dad, there's no starch in the restaurant." And they went to school and they told people that they ate starch and people laughed at them. So you can't just change food because somebody is trying to say change. People have to be educated on the present danger of malnutrition because most people don't even know their children are malnourished. It was during the Civil War that we could see pictures of malnourished people being in the then Biafra, and people knew that there was malnutrition. In Nigeria today, go to Shodi, go to CMS, go to the villages, there are many children and adults who are extremely malnourished. So we need to educate people on the present danger of malnutrition. Nobody will change without knowing that there's a need to change. Explaining the links also between malnutrition and disease and growth disorders. That people are stunted is not because of an evil spirit somewhere. It's not because of any other reason. We must link stunted growth, scurvy, the bow leg, all those challenges and diseases that have to do with malnutrition, must link them together. And then we begin to ask government and community leaders government to enact policies that are acceptable, and then we can go from there to awareness campaign. Can we get the next slide, please? Next slide, please, yes. This slide is telling us about a two-plate diet. And that is what we normally eat. Heavy mountain of swallow with soup. If you look at that soup, there are tiny, tiny pieces of meat there. Compared with this is a young boy. This is dangerous for an adult and somebody above 40. Really. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So we now haven't seen the dangers of carbohydrates being the main food we take in Nigeria. We begin to ask ourselves, what do? We introduce the protein diet. Proteins are nutrients needed by the human body for growth and maintenance. They're also used in membranes such as glycoprotein. Most proteins are decomposed to single amino acids. Most proteins, when they get to this level, digestion typically begins in the stomach We all know that. And then the small intestines. Most proteins are already reduced to single amino acid or peptides of several amino acids. I don't want to bore you with biochemistry, but we need to know that proteins form the building block of the human cell, whereas carbohydrates they're just energy giving. Protein determines beauty, color of the skin, the rich look, as it were, and even longevity. Next slide, please.
There's a bit of delay with the network.
All right. Yeah. So this is what dietitians and public health people are trying to sell to the populace. It's called the Eat Well plate. When we're in school, in primary school, they told us about balanced diet. But we're not talking about people ensuring that take a lot of fruits and vegetables, bread, rice, potato, look at everything divided in level with them, the amount you need. Milk and dairy foods is very for young people. Foods and drinks high in fat or sugar, very small. We have to reduce that. Meat, fish, eggs, larger in quantity. But you see what happens? Most of us dwell on bread, rice, and things like that, and pasta. And then most Africans don't go for fruit and vegetables. We stumble across upon fruits. Hey, can I have orange? Oh, can I have pineapple? We don't eat food as a matter of regular meals. We take fruit when we see them. And we don't take veggies, And next slide, please. So that's what we now call a healthy diet. Time will not allow us to go into details of this. Then a healthy diet is now defined as a well-balanced diet that contains a variety of nutritious food, such as carbohydrates, but in small quantities compared to proteins, vegetables, fruits, fish, nuts, and whole grains. When we did a study some years back and asked people why they love carbohydrates, they said it holds their stomach. That all these things they see here, they call it in African parlance, food for animals. You serve somebody salad and fruit, he will tell you, am I a goat? I'll start eating leaves. But this is what we need to eat to experience great health. So a balanced diet, a healthy diet is a balanced diet that contains these things prepared using the best cooking methods and eating in the right proportion. Very, very important. I'm going to remind people that the timing of food is also very important. We don't have a national food culture in Nigeria. In a place like Australia, they eat 6 times a day. And they just eat different things at different times. There's different between breakfast, there's different between lunch, there's different between snack time, there's dinner, there's supper. Most Nigerians, in many communities in Nigeria, have not developed what we call a healthy, well-known and acceptable time for food. I was in one of these West African countries some years ago, and suddenly all the shops closed. And I asked why. They said it was time for lunch, and everybody went for lunch. So a balanced diet, a healthy diet, is useful in prevention, controlling of morbidity, and premature mortality resulting from non-communicable diseases like hypertension and the like. Eating a wide variety of food in a day, that's very important. Not just garri in the morning, plantain in the afternoon, amala at night. No. This is the variety we are talking about, which is proteins, vegetables, fruits, fish, nuts, and whole grains. And limiting the total fats, especially saturated fats. Increasing the consumption of fruits and vegetables. Now, this is what we're talking about, fruits and vegetables. This provides vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, and the next slide, please. Next slide, please. Roots and tubers. Next slide, please. Grains and legumes. Next slide, please. Meat and fish. Fish is healthier than meat. Fish with scales are better than others. So we come to this place now, culture change. Having known this, we now ask ourselves, how are we going to move from the 2-plate diet of swallow and soup, of carbohydrate as a main meal, to promoting protein? It's called breaking the ice, because culture change is very, very difficult. Whether it's in Europe, Asia, Africa, people resist changes to what they are used to. Like I said, food is life. Food is life. So we have to start with sensitization of communities. And this starts with taking the cognizance, the current knowledge. We have to know what people eat, why they eat it, when they eat it. It's not just one thing to say your food is dangerous. What exactly are they eating? What is the protein content? What is the carbohydrate content of what they're eating? What is their attitude to other types of food? I worked in Benue State, Plateau State, Taraba State, and fringes of the then Granola State and Adamawa State, yeah. And each time a patient came to the clinic, and I asked them, have you eaten? When last did you eat? They say, oh, 1 week ago. And I write, I was not eating the last 1 week. I was getting worried. Until I came out of my clinic and I asked somebody, why is that people here don't eat? They seem to be fasting. He said, no. That when you say food among the tea people, food among the Jukums, food among the Domas, you are talking of pounded yam. If you have not eaten pounded yam, you have not eaten. So people may eat bread, they may eat rice, they may eat any other thing. If you say, have you eaten food, you mean, have you eaten pounded yam? So I had to start asking them, what did you take this morning? Because I was writing everybody as starving, you know. So we need to know the knowledge, attitude, and their practices. The attitude towards food, how they prepare the food, and what did they identify this food with. I give you a very typical example. In Africa, children are not given eggs. There are myths about egg. If a child is given egg, it may likely become a thief. So they don't give children eggs because they don't want them to become thieves. But what is obvious now from all studies is that it's children that need the protein much more than the adults. So we need to know why they do this. They don't give their children protein because it's expensive, but it's not covered under the guise of, oh, you become a thief. So I remember growing up, my grandma would give me meat. Before she gives me the meat, she would put the meat in her mouth, cut the meat, and give me a tiny bit, and say, that's your own. And the other food will just be carbohydrate. So what we're able to understand in CAP, we do a KAP studies, which is part of what I think have been done in the process of bringing us here. We can now know how to approach these people and break the ice, because changing food culture is difficult. After that, we go to the next stage, confronting communities with their realities, making them understand that, look, you're not getting well nourished, you are falling ill very often because carbohydrate does not contribute anything to antibody formation, doesn't contribute anything to white blood cells, doesn't contribute anything to red blood cells, platelets, all those coagulation factors. These things come from proteins. If these people are made to understand that, look, this is the danger, this is why many of you die early, this is why the human, the death rate is so high, mortality rate is so high, then they begin to identify poor nutrition with death, poor nutrition with frequent illness, poor nutrition with under-5 mortality. Then we can now move to the next one, awareness campaigns regarding benefits of meals rich in proteins. Nobody will change until they find out that what they're eating now is not the best. If we look at the sustainability goals, 2030, promoted by the United Nations, there's always ending hunger, ending hunger. And when the foreigners come to Africa, when they look at protein, energy, malnutrition, they end up just pouring food like carbohydrate, rice, and gari to the community. Because yes, when people are starving in the place of war, The first thing they need is energy. And so we find these countries always shipping in carbohydrates to Africa because they believe that that's what Africans need. Well, they may need that at the point of rising from hypoglycemia. But if you want people to grow and grow intelligent and grow to become healthy, we have to start pushing meals rich in proteins. We need to get stakeholders to buy in. Women, farmers, cooperatives, traditional institutions, religious organizations, town unions, labor unions, the media, and the film industry, including Nollywood. Because when you watch most Nollywood films, you find out that you hardly see vegetables and nuts on the table. And then the institutions of learning. What do they serve in our bucatarias? What do they serve in campus cafeterias? Then government at all levels need to enact policies, maybe using National Orientation Agency or mass mobilization to get people to understand that we can't just live on carbohydrate. Carbohydrate is good, but add something to it. We need to do education of educators and students from early childhood through universities. Can we go to the next one? I'm almost done. I'm almost done. Next slide, please. Thank you. So this is what I've shared with us today. Can I have the first slide for my summary? The first slide. The first slide. The very first slide. The very first slide, please. The very first slide. Slide number 1. All right. So what we have shared today is Nigeria's food culture. Can we go back? Nigeria's food culture and the challenge of protein deficiency. So unfortunately, I ran through so much, but there's a part where I was trying to also make us understand, in summary, that if animal protein is expensive, we should look at selling plant protein. For instance, granules. 20 grams of granite has 7 grams of protein, and that's within about 160 calories. Millet is high in protein. 100 grams of millet will give you 378 calories, but will give you 11 grams of protein. Our common egusi, the only problem with egusi is that we overboil it and we steam it and we fry it, that we virtually kill the proteins there. Soya beans, 100 grams of soya beans has 57.5 grams of protein. Crayfish, cheap. 100 grams of protein of crayfish has 185 grams of protein. Sorry, 100 grams of crayfish, yes, has so much protein in it. Snails, that's animal protein too, but easy to cultivate and cheap. Not cheap in the cities, but cheap in the villages. It has protein, it has omega-3, it has selenium, it has iron and B12. At 90 calories of snails, we can get 16.5 grams of protein. Then granules, last but not the least. Granola is everywhere in this country. It's planted in the north and transported to the south. 28 grams of granules will give us, at 159 calories of energy, will give us 7 grams of protein. Almonds, so many other ways of getting. I'm saying this because we have to walk the talk. If we're going to encourage protein in this country, we have to begin to think of the protein that is affordable, accessible, and will be appetite inducing. There's no point giving people things that they cannot afford to buy, or giving them things they cannot prepare because they need so much light, so much preservation. So let's think of promoting and marketing plant-based protein. That is the key to start. While the rich can do chicken, the rich can do turkey, the rich can do all kinds of animal protein with all the challenges involved with cholesterol and all those in animal protein, is good for the rich. And we have to think of plant protein, soya beans, granules, millet, even ewedu, okra, gbegiri. They all have levels of protein. The only problem with ewedu, with okra and gbegiri, is this issue of boiling and boiling and boiling. At 100 degrees centigrade, protein is denatured. And the key we have with beans in this country today is that we boil beans, we fry beans, we roast beans. By the time you do all those things to beans, you are virtually killing beans. Thank you very much for the opportunity of giving you this keynote address. It appears the note is longer than the key. I hope you can bear with me. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Boyo.
Right.
It's been quite an illuminating session. I think we've had some very useful insights from your presentation. Thank you so much once again. At this point, I'd like to hand over to Linda, who will be coordinating the discussion session. So Linda, over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. John, and thank you so much, especially Dr. Boyo. Like, that was very insightful. And basically, I really like the fact that you brought it all together. Like, we are a bunch of nutrients. I feel like that is why we are here. Because, I mean, most people who have joined in will wonder, this is a period of pandemic, so why talk about protein? But, you know, it's a tiny conversation like this that really makes a whole lot of difference, especially because protein is out there to help us build our immune systems and, you know, really help in cell regeneration. So it's a conversation that we really need to talk about. And coming from the angle of culture, I mean, Nigeria has a special culture when it comes to eating that I think is very peculiar to most countries, but we have really tilted so much to carbohydrate that it has turned out to cause more harm than good. So I will also invite Dr. Boyo to join us in the panel discussion, but I will introduce other stakeholders in this discussion. Like he said, we need to get the stakeholders to buy in. So today we actually have Mr. Ezekiel Ibrahim. He's the president of the Poultry Association of Nigeria, and basically that's PAN is an umbrella for the Association of Poultry Farmers and other related agricultural specific and sensitive association in Nigeria. We also have Mr. Larry Fasakin. He's the Managing Director of Communications and Marketing Research Group. And like Mr. John earlier said, he and his team conducted the research. So I would, in order not to waste our time so much or spend so much time, I would move over to Mr. Larry Fasakin. I hope he's still there with us.
Yeah, I'm very much around.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. So your team, you and your team actually conducted this research, and I feel like not just me, but everyone here is anxious to know, like, what was the result, what was the evidence of, you know, the whole survey.
Yes, thank you very much, Linda. Let me start by saying a big thank you to Dr. Boyo. The presentation was worth the wait. Good job, sir. Well done. Thank you. For context, I'd like to share with us the sample selection method and our sample structure. That usually helps to situate the findings. I'd like to share a few slides too. Please come with me. I have a couple of slides to share here. The host has disabled my participant screen. Let him enable it, please. I have one or two slides to share, so it will be easier for everyone to flow along as we discuss. Enable me to share my screen, please.
You can't share your screen except you make sure you co-host.
Okay. Would that be possible? Can we do that?
Yes. Okay. All right.
Just let me know as soon as that is done, so I will be able to.
Okay, please do bear with us. We'll really get it sorted soon.
Okay.
Thank you.
Welcome.
What's the problem? What's it going to be saying?
Okay, so if you are on this conversation and then you are listening, and you can see the our platforms like online, please you try and follow them, and of course continue the conversation there once this is done. It doesn't really end here. We'll still continue afterwards.
Okay. Very good. Okay, am I able to share my screen now?
Yeah, I'm told you can. I'm told you can now. I'm told you can share a screen now. Larry, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. But it's still not given. It's saying host disabled participant screen. There has to be something that says participants can share simultaneously. That should be indicated on the share screen button. It's not showing yet.
Okay, let me. I'm sure they're working on it.
Oh, well.
Okay, so while we are waiting
maybe
for,
I can just talk through it.
Okay.
What do you think?
Okay, that will be fine.
Maybe I can just talk through.
Yeah.
Yes. Once they're able to let me in so I could share the screen, it's a lot nicer. But okay, for context, the respondents profile, the survey was conducted amongst a random sample of 2,041 households across 10 locations pan-Nigeria. The choice of location was carefully done to reflect all the 6 geopolitical zones in the country. We had respondent categories aged between 18 to 55. Consumers in the BAB accounted for about 1%. The middle class, C1, C2, accounted for the bulk, close to 70%, and the DE, 22%. We had a combination of the genders, male, female, skewed 60-40 in favor of females for obvious reasons. We're talking about the menu table here. Amongst our respondents, we had adults, female head of households, caregivers, and nursing mothers. That's just for context. We'll be able to situate findings within that. What did we find? Linda's question to us. Findings show that Nigerians appreciate the essence of protein and reasonably associate it with health and well-being.
Larry, sorry, I'm told you have to click your share screen button. Click your share screen button. I'm told you have to click your share screen button underneath to be able to see your slides.
Okay, let me do that.
Please.
It's still disabled. It's still disabled.
Okay.
I just clicked the share screen button. It's still disabled.
Okay, okay. Well, I'm sure they're working on it. Okay, please go on. Please go
on. Yes, I just say that survey conclusively showed that Nigerians appreciate the essence of protein, and they reasonably associate proteins with health and well-being. The survey also showed that the respondents displayed a very rich knowledge of protein-rich food items. But this impression notwithstanding, we saw a situation where carbohydrates accounted for much more of what we eat as a people. We're seeing a situation where rice and swallows enjoyed a near universal consumption pattern. Virtually everywhere we went across the cultures ate rice. We're looking at penetration rate of 91% here for rice. That's slightly above 9 out of 10. That translates to universal consumption. The next widely consumed will be swallows, as we earlier captured, eba, amala, pounded yam, fufu, and the rest, 83% penetration. You are seeing at a much lower level, beans being the most widely consumed protein. And here we have 76%. Please stay with me there, because if you look at the variation between the most widely consumed protein, which is beans, and the universal consumption of swallows and rice, it goes without inference that some people eat their carbohydrate without proteins. We'll get there shortly. In terms of in-home penetration, meat elicited 65% mention. At a much lower level, fish 59%, soya bean 53%, and eggs 45%. What drives our choice of food? What are the influencing factors? Two key factors emerge strong. Availability, we eat what's around us. That again speaks to what the culture tells us to eat, what we grew up eating. And the second big factor here, as endorsed by 68%, is affordability. Again, please let's hold this. Availability and affordability, what we call the double A, is define what we eat. We might have to come back to this when we're looking at the recommendations in terms of the suitable campaign across locations. The protein-rich foods mentioned prominently will be beans, meat, fish, soya beans, eggs, and milk. A good point to note here is the lower socioeconomic categories in both the urban and rural areas are victims of protein deficiency. Probably this will drive it home a little bit. The study finds that about 1 out of every 4 households have situations whereby they eat their carbohydrates without protein. The study also finds that 1/4 do not consume all the 6 leading protein-rich foods in their household, namely beans, meat, fish, soya beans, milk, and eggs. What are we talking about here? You have all these protein sources being present at different levels in the home. If you're looking at households that actually have all the 6 on their menu list as items they consume, you're looking at 65%. The statistics is more interesting if you disaggregate that by the areas, urban, rural. As high as 40% of the households interviewed in the rural areas do not have all these 6. So if you're looking at the protein deficiency here, is as acute as saying that about 1/3 of our sample from the randomly selected households in Nigeria do not consume all the 6 leading protein-rich foods in their home. What is the deterrent? How come people do not consume as much protein as they ought to do, despite the good awareness of protein-rich meals, despite their favorable disposition to protein, and despite their understanding of what protein does to the body? Let me say that the study endorsed and confirmed the benefit of protein. It helps growth, it helps the skin glow, it helps you to be immune against diseases, and so on. We have a long list of positives associated with protein consumption. But despite that, we're seeing a situation whereby the bulk of our diet is still consisting largely of carbohydrates. So what will be the hindrances? What are the disincentives to consumption of protein? High cost emerged as the strongest factor mentioned here. We're seeing a situation where people consider in the 2 plate food culture, we're still seeing a situation where protein is seen as being more expensive, even though the quantity and the volume is smaller. It's seen as being more expensive than the much bigger ration, which is carbohydrate. On balance, we're seeing a preeminence of carbohydrate cutting across all the cultures in Nigeria. If we look at the fact that in the North Central, we're seeing their own type of protein being in the swallows, tuwo, shinkafa, tuwo, masara axis, compared with the different other staples across. The study now says that regular consumption of plant proteins such as beans and soya bean emerged notably high in Sokoto, Gombe, and Rivers. Imagine that we earlier said that the drivers of what we eat will be the two A's, availability and affordability. So by extension, the kind of protein that is A and A, affordable and available in the South-South will speak to things like fish protein and birds. That's a chicken. In the Southwest, it speaks to things like beans, essentially based on it's been brought down. It speaks to things like poultry and to a large extent fish. In the Northwest, again, we're looking at soya beans, beans, and fish protein. In the South, in the Northeast, again, we're looking at soya beans and beans. So what are we saying here? Availability is such that every region in the country has its own peculiar definition of protein. Okay, so the idea of about 1 in 4 households not taking protein with their carbohydrate can be easily addressed with proper education and awareness campaign. Influences on choice of food. We have other influences in addition to those two, being things like the taste, the nutritional values, and what we consider as favorite, what gives fondness, respondents call it. This varies with the socioeconomic categories. We're seeing taste gaining meaning amongst the upper middle and the high socioeconomic categories. In fact, virtually all the households, 100% of the households mention taste as a key factor driving what they eat. Nutritional values again gain meaning amongst this category of respondents. So to the ABC1 socioeconomic category, ABC1 will mean the upper middle and the upper socioeconomic categories. We're seeing factors like taste and nutritional benefits driving what we eat. It would have been so nice to have this as the picture global, but it is not. If you look at the other socioeconomic categories, by the way, taste account, only 54% of people in the DE socioeconomic category mentioned taste as a driver of what they consume. Essentially in that category, what drives consumption will be within the range of the two. I eat what is available and which I can afford. 83% there said, I eat what is available. Another substantial proportion, 80%, eat what is affordable. If you look at fondness, fondness means things that give me a treat, things that I take before because my family have a sense of being and sense of self-esteem, making me to eat such. We're seeing again that being a factor among the upper and the upper middle socioeconomic classes. We've talked about protein items. The interesting thing to look at here is that there's a knowledge gap around soya beans as a source of protein.
Sorry to cut you short.
But we'll get to that shortly.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Larry. That's a whole lot right there. And I think we've really picked a lot of information. Like people seem to be in the know that, okay, protein is really good for them. And there's also this issue of availability and affordability. The food seems to be there in terms of, I mean, the Nigerian context, we have the food and all of that, but I think affordability is an issue where we really need to tackle. And at this point, Mr. Ezekiel would help us would definitely say something about that. So I would like to ask Mr. Ezekiel, with regards to protein-rich food, like being at the point of production, how do you think that we can actually make this affordable to people out there? Sorry, please, can you unmute your mic? Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Are you there, sir?
I'll mute my mic.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
You hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Can you hear now?
Yes, we can. Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. First and foremost, I want to thank you, our hosts, the panelists who have given their best contribution. And then, this juncture, I want to greet all fellow Nigerians and also to extend my condolence to all those who lost their loved ones during this pandemic. Actually, to say we have protein deficiency is not an understatement. Because as of today, Nigerians are more than 200% poorer than they were about 40 years ago. And chicken has been part and parcel of our culture, African culture. The importance of chicken is so important that all aspects of life, chicken is involved. From wedding ceremonies, circumcision, burial, all religious rites, traditional religious rites. If you go through memory lane, chicken is part and parcel of it. So what happened along the line? I'll just give you a vivid example. For over 40 years, actually, we have not developed as a people. Let me give you a short example. By 78, 1 naira, $2. As of today, $1 is 400, over 400 naira. So, therefore, why people actually experience food deficiency? Quality of food I ate, actually, yes, the rich, the super rich in Nigeria, when I was young, they cannot afford it now. So the issue is, we have so overgrown and we have taken diversification for granted. We have just depended on one single line revenue, and our population has tremendously grown and depending on the little resources. Then, as people were not given attention to food science and diets, there are few nutritionists today, dietitians, this country, and food scientists, because we have so much relegated our traditional food to the background. And we depended on foreign foods. Rice has never been a dominant food in Nigeria, not until recently. And why? The rural-urban migration in the 70s, 73, when we had money, people moved from the rural areas to the urban centers. And rice is very cheap to prepare. But in the rural areas, not until recently, they eat rice only during Christmas or Salah celebration. They stay their tradition. So, and I told you earlier, chicken, not because of the importance of chicken. That is why women were scared from eating egg. Because, well, you know, we cannot hatch in thousands or millions as we do. So if women were encouraged to eat egg, there will be no chicken. So if we want to go for traditional rite or to ask for marriage or to do any other wedding ceremony, where will the chicken come? So women were scared that if you eat egg, your child will grow big and it will be difficult for you to give birth. Then they said a lady that eats egg will gossip a lot. So all I'm saying that we have to accept that our standard of living has fallen today in Nigeria.
Thank you very much,
And
sir.
what are we?
Thank you very much, sir. So
Yes, can I continue?
Oh, okay, just 1 minute. Yeah.
I wish you would have allowed me. I've been waiting for this moment. Okay. So the issue is there is acute protein deficiency. And chicken is the cheapest source of animal protein we have today. When we used to raise our traditional chicken, it takes you almost 3 months or 4 months for the chicken to mature. With science and modernity, today in 5 weeks, you have broilers on your table. You have meat on your table. In the animal protein, beans is the best. But because people are poor, too poor, now beans has become a cash crop. Instead of them to consume, they take it to the market to sell to meet their other needs. However, in the 70s, from IITA, we had this idea of soybeans. And the advantage of soybean, others, is just good for human and animal consumption. So with soybeans, now you are better off. You can use it for your own consumption. Then you can use it to make food for your animal, which means it has double advantage. However, because it's almost a new thing, there is limited menu. If you can make a lot of things from soybeans, but there's little knowledge on some of the niche that you can use soybeans with. So it is important that we realize this, that diversifying to agriculture is a key to our survival as a nation. It is very important. We have taken a lip service to agriculture since the period of during the regime of Gawan, when we have 12 states. You know, there are specific crops, but we took it for granted because we have petroleum money. And up to today, we have not given serious attention to agriculture. Why I say this, when you see the budget allocation to agriculture, and where 60% of Nigerians are resident in rural areas and dependent on agriculture, and even the urban people, if there is no food taken into the urban center, where can you survive? We cannot rely on importation as a country and think we more. We are deceiving ourselves. And this COVID-19 has really brought us to the reality of our life, because Now we are deficient in logistics. As we can see now, aid that is supposed to be the most important palliative of government, for government to give to its citizens, they don't even have ability to move these eggs to where they are needed. And two, they never made it an important part of it because the cost will be too much for them. So what do we do now? First, we have to rejig our economy to make sure that food is very cheap. As of today, compared to other even African countries, an egg is about 30, 40 naira. Egg is not supposed to be more than 5 naira. What is the cost of production? The cost of production is too high. We have not received yield per hectare. You know, the major ingredient for hatchery, for poultry, is soybeans and maize. What is the yield of soybeans per hectare in Nigeria compared to America or Brazil? What is the yield per hectare of maize per hectare? In Brazil, you are thinking of 12 tons. In Nigeria, you are thinking of 2.5 tons. In America, yield per hectare, you are thinking of 12, 13 tons per hectare. In Nigeria, you are talking of 1.5 to 2 tons of soybeans. So, and you cannot compare our economy. So the most important thing in this situation is really to build the microeconomy. That is, go to individual farmer, empower him, let food be cheaper and affordable. And because we cannot do without chicken. If you see any country that came out of the woods, be it America, be it France, be it Israel, be it France, first they make food is what is
Thank you so much,
the
Mr.
best food you can
Ezekiel.
afford
I'll
to
be
your
coming
citizen
back
is
to you
chicken
shortly.
and egg.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ezekiel. I'll be
Thank you.
coming back to you shortly. So, Dr. Boyo, I hope you are still hanging in there, but I need to talk to Mr. Lanre on this, because I know he also mentioned the fact that there's, I mean, he talked about affordability and availability, and he went on to say that affordability, availability, and he talked so much about plant-based protein. And then here I have Mr. Ezekiel, and then he's talking about soya beans. So I don't know if it's some of the things that really came out of the research that he would want to share with us. Mr. Lanre, are you there with us? Okay, so I'm not sure he's here. Okay, I don't think he's here with us, but it's something that I would, okay, we have him right here. Okay, please, can you unmute your mic, Mr. Lanre? Okay. Hello, sir, can you hear me?
Yeah, very well. Sorry,
okay, so I'll just give you a run through from something that you said, and Mr. Ezekiel is saying something in that same light. So I really would want you to make some clarification since you have the data. So you were talking about availability, and then you mentioned specifically plant-based protein, I mean, for the Nigerian context. And then having to speak to Mr. Ezekiel, he also mentioned particularly soya beans this time. So I don't know if it's something, one of the things that came out of the research. Maybe you could tell us, since you have some information on that with regards to soya beans and plant-based protein, like what did you find out?
Okay, thank you. Plant-based protein was quite popular. The more popular of the bean family will be the regular beans. That recorded about 76% in-home penetration national. In terms of soya bean, we're looking at a situation whereby 53% of the randomly selected household consume it. But that is quite tricky. 53% looks like it's average consumption across board, but in reality, the consumption is limited to.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. So basically, from what Mr. Lanre is saying, there's average consumption of soya beans, and then Mr. Ezekiel has also pointed out to us that, you know, there's a lot of potential. I mean, from an expert in the value chain in terms of production, he's talking about a lot of potential. So if we are at average, I think it would really be worth it to talk about moving it a step further, especially with the issue of logistics, like he mentioned. And I think it's a very good path for us to look at. So back to you, Mr. Ezekiel. Could you please tell us like some of the challenges that poultry farmers encounter, especially because they are key stakeholders when we talk about protein deficiency?
Yes.
And availability?
You know, poultry is capital intensive. And in Nigeria, actually it's private sector driven. So the cost of capital in this country is so high that takes a lot of resilience and patriotism to be in the poultry industry. Most advanced economies,
Hello?
the interest rate, hello?
Hello, Mr. Lanre, could you please mute your mic? I'll come back to you shortly.
Am I? Okay.
Yes, thank you. Yes, you can go on, sir.
Can I continue?
Yes, thank you, sir.
Okay. So in most advanced economies, even in some African countries, the interest rate is so low that it attracts people to go and invest. To go in agriculture, into any agricultural venture, not only poultry, if interest rate is more than 5%, if you are lucky, you can just break. Two, has not really encouraged staying in agriculture. I gave you just a recent example. We have witnessed a situation as important as egg is, because if there is no complete guide that nature has given more than egg, because if you are talking of immunity booster, egg is number one. Then it surprises you at this pandemic, which we said actually we need our immunity to be stronger to fight this pandemic. We are barring eggs. Doesn't it look so absurd? Why? In our policies, as I said, this COVID has re-exposed us as a group. That there is synergy, there is no plan for crisis, likely because we have never experienced natural disasters. People were down without thinking of their lives, without thinking, for God's sake, how can you fight COVID, coronavirus with hunger? The moment you are hungry, our immunity tends to be. We should, the government should devise a means to ensure that food is given a top priority in whatever, even in a worst situation. Then it has exposed that as a federation, there is no proper synergy between states and the federal government. This has also affected my farmers. Three, we should actually see how we can bring cost of production, because you cannot stop struggling by mere force. And today, what is bedeviling poultry farm in Nigeria is struggling. Despite the border closure, you see imported frozen poultry products in the market, which are hazardous. We are importing cancer when we have the capability and this. What should government do? We should intensify research. We have agricultural research institutes. How are they funded? Why our yield has been stagnating or even, in fact, sorry to interject, I have been a farmer, a farm boy. I have been farming for 42 years, since in my teen. But at any point in time, you have not seen the level of encouragement that will keep you on the farm. That is why we are facing a serious threat now. Most young people are leaving the rural areas to urban centers for a quick fix job, which is not there. So government use the present stakeholders in the commodity associations to show that they mentor young farmers to go back to agriculture. That is the most important thing. And two, unfortunately, I repeated twice, in this country, we have not developed data. We don't have reliable data. We always work on assumption. We cannot continue to assume we are 200 million. We cannot continue to assume we have so. We should have a reliable and transparent data.
Thank you so
It is
much.
the only way, because as of today, we don't know what food reserve we have. We don't know anything about data is zero. And lastly, we cannot move as a nation unless we as citizens, we are transparent and honest in our dealings. The level of 419 or what in this country has scared a lot of people, even us as citizens. I don't know how we go about it, but I think we have traditional institutions, we have religious leaders who let us actually be honest enough, be transparent enough. When we are wrong, we accept we are wrong. When we are right, we strive no matter how the situation we stand, we are right. If we do this, Nigeria is one of the greatest countries in this world and have the potential to reach the peak, but we must learn to do things right. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. He has really said it all, and I really agree with him. Data is so important, even before you go out there, run an intervention or decide, because that's what we definitely tell you. This is what the problem is, and this is what is most likely going to be the solution. So I really agree with that so much, and I think it's something for us to take home. And he also mentioned that, you know, it's about us, especially in terms of being honest with what we want and all of that. And I would also say that Mr. Ezekiel has also shed some light on the challenges that is being faced, and it's a whole lot. But truly, if there is some form of potentials in terms of having soybeans to boost the production of poultry farm, then why not? It's a very good path for us to talk. So thank you so much, Mr. Ezekiel, once again. So back to Mr. Larry. Mr. Larry, can you please unmute your mic? Are you there?
I think he's having problems with his network.
Okay.
But let me just chip in quickly.
Okay.
Linda, you are a nutritionist, and there was actually a question on the chat about what role nutritionists can play in this whole challenge of protein deficiency. Would you like to share some thoughts on that?
Okay, thank you so much, sir. So basically, it's about, I think, based on the data that we have right now, people are in the know. So the most important thing is, like we've said today, it's about affordability and availability, because we really have to, people know that, you know, this is what is right for them. But if they cannot afford it, then it becomes an issue for them. So I think it's about time for us as a nation, if we are not able to tackle the issue of economy that we face right now, because it's a long-term issue. So it's something that really requires a lot of process. Then we might start looking at diet diversification as in a way where we'll start looking at what are the cheaper alternatives. And I will particularly fall back to what Mr. Ezekiel has said. He mentioned, egg is so expensive. And this, when you have your egg in hand and then you have your chicken, they are giving you almost the same nutrients, because it's the egg in itself that forms the chicken. So, we can always encourage people to go for this cheaper alternative. If you cannot afford this, then you can afford this. If you cannot afford your regular beans and all of the regular milk in the market, for example, then you can even have your soybean milk. I mean, there are families who they have spaces where they can do this production, but because they don't really understand or they don't really know, so they don't see the value, the potential value that protein would have in their diet. So it becomes a lot of issues. I would say that in health generally, it's a lot of complexities, but the whole idea is to ensure that people go with the cheaper option, and we try as much as possible to maximize to minimize all the challenges in the value chain, and of course rely on cheaper alternative. Like I'm so happy that there are new discoveries coming out of this discussion today, and which is what really matters, because of course it's like we all know the problem that everybody eats carbohydrate, but we don't know what can be done. So we know that soya bean is something that has really been neglected for a long time. So I'm really putting it out there that it might be a path that we should look at, especially in the nearest future, looking at the way the population is going right now. So,
thank you very much. Thank you very much, Linda.
Yeah, you're welcome, sir. So I think Mr. Larry, his connection is probably having some issues. So I would go back to Dr. Boyo just to round it up. I mean, he's the one in the front line. He's the one who sees the people with the deficiency and all of that, and he would understand it better than most people do, like the average person does. So I would just want to ask, and thank you so much, sir, for hanging in there with us. So basically, I really want to know, like, is there really a possibility in terms of mitigating this, and what advice can you give, like in terms of campaign, like giving the results out there, giving what is happening in the value chain? Are there any information that you can give us out there? Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I
Okay.
appreciate Mr. Ezekiel's contribution and that of Mr. Lanry. What Mr. Ezekiel made us understand that you can't treat food with hospital alone. There are so many things involved in appropriate diet. Like I've given an example, if the economy is bad, if the roads to the villages are bad, if people cannot pick up, he was talking about the acreage of each of America and soya beans and that of Brazil and Nigeria. You find that really, with all the wonderful seedlings coming from ITA, with all the wonderful amount we are spending on fertilizers, we have not yet gotten there. We are still far from there. So it's not just encouraging people to eat soya beans. Soya beans cannot be available. That's the truth, except the government starts from the farm. Why? The competition for soya beans is not only human beings. Animal feeds is also eating the soya beans. And there's much more money in animal feeds than in human beings. So people prefer to sell the soya beans to Mr. Ezekiel, to the poultry farmers, to the other kinds of people that even to sell to people that are human beings. So as it has turned out now, it's obvious that the people in animal husbandry, poultry farming, all those things, they value soya beans more than you, Linda, and myself. We are talking about soya beans for human consumption. They are talking about soya beans for poultry and this. And so they know what is more, they know the importance of soya beans. We know, we're here to convince our people. So what's happening now is that much of the soya beans is being diverted to animal husbandry and poultry. That's one. Two, as I said earlier on, if the economy doesn't come up, people will not be able to, it's all interwoven. The economics, the politics, the agric and everything, they're all interwoven. Like I said, a dollar was 2 naira in 1978. Sorry, $2 was 1 naira in 1978. Today, you can say, so it has affected every other thing. So it has affected transportation, it has affected cost of fuel. I know when Abacha was in power, we're talking about moving petrol from 11 kobo, not naira. You know, and look at where we are today now, 11 naira. Look at where we are today now. So at the end of the day, they're all interwoven. Then Lake Seton is very, very significant. He was talking about being able to look at the nature of people, the affordability and availability. As it is today now, soya beans is affordable. For who? For the middle class. The lower class in north central Nigeria, they eat what they plant. As I said, I've worked not for 6 months, not for 1 year, not for 2 years. I've covered from Oturpo to Garkida in Adamawa. I've covered the Bagis and the Basa and the Basange, Basankomo. Those people eat what they farm. They don't eat any strange food. They don't eat plantain. If they don't farm it, they don't eat it. So there's a need for us to intervene at the level of encouraging them to. They now have soya beans in the North Central. North Central is the home for soya beans and cashew. But unfortunately, they cannot harvest and harness. In other words, turn soya beans to other things that are edible. All they just do, if you know the amount of, Mr. Ibrahim will bear me witness, the amount of food crops wasted in the North Central, because they can't, once it's not bought, it's eaten and thrown away. So going back to what we are saying now, protein is a great source of food, nutrient and for defeating malnutrition. But at the same time, it takes us a lot of effort to introduce it on the dining tables of people in the rural areas. Why? It's not available in the South, as we think. Soya beans is not so much available. The aquaculture, dairy farmers, poultry farmers, and these other people are competing for the soya beans. So the price of soya beans in the South is virtually going to go up. So as we are thinking of promoting the use of soya beans, we should also know that we are competing with a cabal. Who is the cabal? This Ezekiel's team in the area of wanting to use soya beans for animals and things and birds. So we need to know that if we're going to campaign for soya beans, we must start from campaigning for the planting, the harvesting, the storage, and the utilization of soya beans. Like we could start from now. There's soyogi, there's soya beans in some of these nutritions that we have now. We must go beyond that. So I want to say that, in summary, we are where we are today because what Mr. Ezekiel said: poor planning, poor government. But we cannot complain about the government every time. We have to wake up and take the bull by the horns. I was talking to the team from the organizers that this thing must start from the very top. Addis Ababa agenda is there. The Bamako Accord is there. Bamako Sustainability Conference is there. The United Nations Sustainable Development Goals of ending hunger in the year 2030 is there. And if we're going to end hunger in the year 2030, it's not by pumping carbohydrates down their throats. It's by affordable, available, and nutritious diet that will make our children to come be intelligent, smart, and look healthy. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Boyo. Yeah.
So there's a question here from Olarewaju. So I'll just take that. I also think there are a lot of food rich in protein that our communities tag with taboos, e.g. snail. So basically talking about food meats, like, and the person is like, how do we stop, like, how do we correct this meat, especially telling pregnant women not to eat this. I mean, from my own end, I would say it's about campaign, educating people, because it's almost like an unending process. I don't know if Dr. Boyo will just add something briefly on how we can educate people to say, you know, this food is not right for you.
Yes, we start
if it's not
with,
affecting their health.
yeah, we start with mother and child clinics. We start with mother and child clinics, mother and child welfare clinics. Most doctors don't do that. Most doctors are more interested in giving you firstly folic acid, in 2 weeks' time, ultrasound scan. We can start with schools. Snail is a wonderful meal. People say because snail draws and has sticky things, that if you eat snail when you are pregnant, you are going to be drooling, and that your child too will drooling. Those are all myths. They're not proven. And we have to go on that to explain to people that children can benefit from eggs. A child was brought to my hospital, and the child rejected food. And they were putting drip, the doctors were serving drip. I said, come. The mother said, you know the great chop, you know the great chop. I said, what in the give and chop? He said, I give him eba. I said, okay, this afternoon, bring boiled egg. I've never seen a child in my lifetime reject eggs. I said, bring boiled egg, fresh fish, and then small rice. They know the chop right now, but I said, bring rice. When the child devoured the rice and the fish and the boiled egg, the child was even laughing at me. When I was telling the mother what to buy, the child was doing like this, yes. I said, will you take the egg? He said, yes. Will you take fish? He said, yes. When I was saying, no, when they brought the child finished, what am I saying? Most parents deliberately withhold protein from children. One, because it's expensive, and two, the myth that if you give them these things, they will become thieves in the future. It's not true. Finally, and what you said about how do we pass the message down, is you start from churches, mosques, and even childcare. In our days when we were growing up in Lagos here, there was a school meal. At 11 o'clock in the morning, the state government brought food to everybody in the class. Each class had its own bowl, nutritious food. I hear that it's something called a meal a day program for children. Well, if it's good, it's okay. The UK, after the Second World War, instituted the free milk program. Every child had milk at the door of the doorpost of their houses. It's not too much. If the National Assembly can just drop its income, if we can stop corruption, there'll be enough to go around. So I'm saying that if you start from the government, encouraging people, doing a lot of enactment and policy-driven things, so that at the end of the day, if the children don't get fed now, they will not even pass exams to university in the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's a time well spent, and I can see the comments.
There was a question there. Sorry to come in.
Okay.
There's a question there about beans.
Yeah.
Okay,
if I said we overcook beans, what do we do to beans? The first thing is that let's try and stop frying beans. Let's boil beans and try and eat boiled beans. And if we can afford pressure cookers, let's use them. If we can't afford pressure cookers, I want to boil beans. Let's boil beans, but let's stop frying beans. Water boils at 100 degrees Celsius, but you can't believe it. Palm oil, granite oil can hit 200 degrees. So we should learn how to eat boiled beans. I know fried beans can be very tasty, but let's learn how to eat boiled beans. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Doctor. So a lot of information down there. So we have to watch like method of preparation And of course, the education and campaign has to keep going out there. So basically, those parts are really important. And with the way the country is going right now, it's so important for us to harness those aspects, especially in terms of protein-rich food that has not been really harnessed over the past decade, especially because they have so much potentials in improving our health. So thank you so much. So back to you, Mr. John.
Thank you very much. I think it's been a time well spent, like you said. I'll just sum up the totality of what we discussed today. 2 key points. The first is that an improved economy and improved quality of life of people would help us to better address the twin issues associated with protein consumption, which are affordability and availability. The more the economy improves, the more people have better incomes, the more people to afford protein as adequate. Second thing is education is very important. And that's the point that Dr. Bowie made very strongly. People need to be aware to dispel some of the myths around some food items, and also to be aware of some of the benefits, of having a balanced diet and so on and so forth. I think I'll stop at this point. It's been a very illuminating session. I want to especially once again thank everybody who has participated in this. And I think it's been a good start to this campaign. As we proceed in the campaign, you'll become aware of some of the other things that we're doing. Essentially, like I said at the beginning, the whole idea is to create more awareness about protein deficiency, but at the same time, position soybeans as a cost-effective solution to the challenge. So it's a 2-track campaign. So I'll be counting on your cooperation as we go along at different levels, at different platforms. I want to thank you so much for this, and I do wish you all a pleasant holiday tomorrow and a wonderful weekend ahead. Thank you very much.
Well, I've been on holiday for the last 3 months. So
well, extended holiday then, sir.
Okay, so thank you so much, everyone, for joining. So keep tweeting. You can go on social media and educate people. Use the hashtag Protein Challenge NG, Protein Deficiency, just so that you educate the next person who is going to educate the next person, and we'll be out of this whole protein deficiency issue.
Linda, thank you, Linda. If it's not too much to include 1 or 2 things that I missed out while the network was bad. Okay. John, sorry about this. It's just the conclusion we drew from the survey. It will be a good idea for the government to, and by saying government, it doesn't have to be Abuja, okay? But governments at different levels to have a sense of what is the minimum quotient of protein that a child is due per day. There has to be a way of committing to that at your own community or local government level. If the definition of protein is, for instance, maybe 600-700 grams, you could have what is available there, and there will be a form of private participation in making that available in the schools. That means in that local government area, the schools there with the effective participation of the private sector will provide at least a meal in school having that. So that could be soya bean where it's very much available. It could be egg where it's very much available. It could be fish where it's in excess supply, and so on. Thankfully, every part of Nigeria has its own rich protein source. So a commitment to that minimum quantity of protein that each child must take a day will go very far in improving the problem of protein deficiency.
That's a very valid point. That's a very valid point, Larry. Thank you so much. Thanks so much once again. It's been a wonderful time, and I hope that, and just to reiterate what Linda said, there's ample information about this campaign on the website, proteinchallengeng.com, and also the social media handles that are on display there. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful extended holiday.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.